Hey guys, I'm a little late. I'm a little late here on Bass 365 Live, but I finally figured it out. Can you believe that? It's taken me a little bit to figure all this out. Uh, I never thought you'd be sitting in a kitchen talking about bass fishing, but here I am. It's John Murray. Fished bass tournaments for a lot of years, and here I am. We're going to talk on Bass 365 Live about fall fishing. We're going to talk about some rapid fishing solutions, and we're going to talk about River2Sea, my favorite bait. Anyway, the first thing about fall fishing is I've been out here a lot. I live on Watts Bar Lake, so I go out fishing almost every day, and I can really watch the patterns, see what happens with the water levels and the cooling temperatures and stuff like that. And this year's been really interesting to see it. It's gone from pretty warm about 2 weeks ago to freezing nights now, so it's getting a little cooler quick. And the first thing that I've noticed is how fast. Now I'm on Watts Bar Lake in Tennessee, so it's a TVA lake. It's a very standard type of fishery, but it is one of those deals that it'll tell you what's happening in areas like this. I'm from Arizona, so I'm very familiar with seasonal patterns out west, but I'm not as familiar with these out here. The first thing I've noticed is all these shad. All the shad in the lake are really heading towards the creeks. So all year long, we've been relating to Main River, Main Current, all this Main stuff to catch bass. And now all those shad that were out there on that main ledges and stuff like that are heading into the creeks. And that's a big difference for me. I think that's a huge noticeable thing that they can come that quick and come into these creeks. So what's happened, and I've always called the fall basically the time of extremes. And this is from my days out west, is that, and by that I mean bass tend to get extremely shallow or they get extremely deep in the fall. And what happens is bait sources go either way. Let's say you've been fishing ledges in 15 to 20 feet all summer long, maybe points, stuff like that. Usually what happens is some of those fish start coming up shallow, getting real shallow. And some of those fish go deep and drop off into the deeper zones. And then really all they're doing is following the food source. On the Tennessee Valley lakes, we have threadfin shad's your main thing, but they also have hickory shad. They also have gizzard shad. They have alewives. I mean, there's a lot of bait fish in the Tennessee lakes. And so some of them go deep and some move in extreme shallows when it gets cool. And those bass are right behind them every time. So really, when I start fall fishing, I think my biggest thing is I look for, the first thing I'm always throwing. I think anybody that has ever followed me and follow me on Facebook, on John Murray Professional Angler, Instagram, or Twitter, is I'm a big River2Sea whopper plopper guy. So what happens with that is it's just a bait that we used to catch a lot of fish on buzzbaits this time of year, and buzzbait is still a tremendous lure, but the whopper plopper is really my baby because it's got the treble hooks. You can cast it a mile, and it makes a unique noise. We've always called it a flat tire. So it sounds like the tire's flat on a car, going thump, 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 and it really draws those fish. So a whopper plopper is my favorite bait to throw this time of year in the fall, and you can't really throw it in the wrong place. Just throw it. And it's really funny that, all summer I've been throwing it early in the morning. It's been the best. Now it's middle of the day. That sun's got to be up. It's got to be a little warmer. The shad got to be coming up to the surface. And it gets a little warmer then, and that's the key to catching those whopper plopper fish, is a little late in the day. You don't hardly get bit early in the morning, but a little late in the day they come up and they start getting into it. So that's one thing that I've noticed about the fall here, is that those shallow topwater fish are a little later. Now, normally when I'm start shallow, fishing in, like right now, if we're going to go out fishing, bass fishing tomorrow, which I probably will, we're probably using square bills. We're throwing spinner baits. We're throwing chatter baits. We're throwing a lot of the baits like that just to cover ground in the morning. Maybe some flipping, maybe some pitching, maybe find some laydowns. But then once that sun gets up, I'm going to go to the whopper plopper. And that's been a great tool to locate those shallow fish. Now, a buzzbait's still a great tool. I've caught quite a few fish this year on a buzzbait. Now, and the reason you throw a buzzbait versus a whopper plopper is just purely the cover. What cover is out there? Is it grassy? You're going to have to throw the buzzbait. If it's, throwing over laydowns and stuff like that, you're gonna have to throw that buzz bait more. But if you get in that open water, or maybe the grass is under the surface, which is a lot of it right now, is 2 inches to a foot under the surface, the whopper plopper is the best bet to bring them up. It's just a little more bulk to it. Now I use the 130 size. This is a bone color. That's as good as anything. That they make great colors in it, and to me, color is confidence. If you look at that bait and say, man, that's going to catch a fish, that's the one I'd throw. So that's how I decide that. Now I throw a whopper plopper on a loose glass rod, but I use braid. So I think that's one thing people misunderstand about topwater. You want to have a soft action rod so they get that bait in their mouth, but I like braid, so when you do tense up, you're going to get that hook set. So I use torque braid, gamma torque braid, probably 30 to 50 pound test. Really, the 30 is on open water stuff. If I'm really in some thick stuff where I'm down on Lake Chickamauga, which is about 10 minutes from me, then it's going to be probably the 50 pound test. So that's going to be a good bait for me. Come here, Tej. Come say hi. This is my son TJ. He's been catching all the fish. We fished the other day in a tournament, and you caught how many?
2.
He caught 2. I caught 1. Yeah, but he liked catching them on a whopper plopper. So say hi to the Bass 365 audience.
Hey.
It's getting past his bedtime. It's 8:30, so I think it's time for him to go to bed. So you get some sleep, little dude.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a good fall for us fishing, and whopper plopper's been a big part of it. Now there's a couple other baits that are good. I mean, it's not the only thing you're going to throw. One that I really like came from River2Sea is the Big Mistake. Now this is a prop bait, and this is one that Chris Lane designed, and it's one I really like with those big props on it. And the difference between a prop bait and a whopper plopper is really where you're throwing it and how you're throwing it on stuff. Are you throwing it at a target or covering water? And that's the only thing. When I'm covering water, I'm throwing a whopper plopper. If I'm target fishing, throwing it at a stump, at right up against a wall or something, and twitching it, the prop bait is the perfect bait, because you twitch it once, you let it sit there. So that's the difference I always have when I fish those 2 different baits in the fall. And it's so funny that these fish can be so inactive on other baits, but they'll absolutely annihilate a topwater bait this time of year. And I don't know if it's something with the gizzard shad, or if it's something. And the other thing I notice is sometimes you want to reel it really fast in the fall. As it gets colder, sometimes the faster retrieve is better than the slower retrieve. It's almost like they get charged by this cooler water. So the other thing I always say with whopper ploppers, make sure you, in all your baits, vary your retrieves till you find out what those bass want. That's a big key. Okay, I think that's always going to, be a big key to catching them. Now, the other bait that is big, and then this is around here, is obviously a frog. I'm using Ish Monroe's Fat Frog, and it's a tremendous bait. It's a big-bodied bait, and you can actually add a little plopper tail to it, the plopper trailer to it, and I always attach them with Rapid Fishing Solutions. These little hook hauls. And basically all that's going to do is I'm going to put those little discs on there, and I'm going to hold that, and now it becomes not only a frog, but it also comes like a whopper plopper. So I can get that same action, and I can throw it in the thickest grass and still catch those fish. So those are my main 3 topwater baits this time of year. I think going to be a big deal. Now the other extreme is just fishing out deep. I said, fall's the time of year you catch them extremely in the extremes. And today, for example, I caught a fish literally on top water in 1.5 foot water. And then I dropped out on the ledge in 35 feet of water. Off the ledge, the shad had come off the ledge into deep water on this lake, and caught them on a jigging spoon. Okay, so now those fish, you can catch them in the same, I caught a 2.5, 3 pound smallmouth in 30 feet, and I caught a 2.5 pound smallmouth in 1 foot today, and largemouth. So I mean, that's the funny thing. They're not all in one place. Don't get mixed up into thinking that all the bass went to the backs of the creeks or all the bass went deep. There's equal amounts of both. Now, the ones shallow might be a little easier to catch. I mean, that's for sure. They'll be a little easier to catch. They'll be more aggressive. Those deep ones, you have to work on a little more. And I've never been a huge drop shot guy this time of year. I think you really have to get them reacting, so I use a jigging spoon a lot. You can use some of the jigging spoons, or you can use the silver buddy type baits, the baits that imitate those shad so well, and you drop down in that deep water and you can catch them. And the other bait, obviously this time of year in the fall, is the A-rig. Any of you that fished any lake on the East Coast from October on know the key, the deadliness of an A-rig when you're out fishing. And that's one thing that I've always, we don't get to use those in tournaments too much, but just for fun fishing, when those bass get on those schools of minnows, an A-rig is a tremendous tool. Now the key to that is really matching the size. Are those bass eating big shad, or are they eating little tiny itsy bitsy little tiny shad? If they're eating those little ones, then yeah, you're in trouble. You need to downsize everything and get down to your A-rig, miniature A-rig stuff to catch them. So that's what I've always seen, is that match the hatch. I have big A-rigs, I have little A-rigs, I have a lot of different ones, and I guess I can show, hopefully it'll show here, some of the different ones we have rigged at all times. Now, I'm not going in a dark hall, I'm going to my garage, and I hope I don't lose my signal. I've not done this before, so I don't know. But anyway, when we get out here to the garage, you're going to see all my baits, all my stuff stacked up, ready to go. I got a few rods, got some stuff here. Now I have a whole nother garage in the back, so I don't want you to think this is my only supply. But I do have a lot of stuff in this garage because this is one I fish out of the most. But when we're talking A-rigs, match the hatch. Get the size of the shad. Spinners on it can be a big thing if the water's a little dingy. Make sure you can get on, match that hatch too. Sometimes we've got on A-rig fish in really deep water. So now we're using real heavy ones, like 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce heads on these A-rigs and dragging them on the bottom in deep water. So the one thing about fall fishing is that, yeah, the whole water column opens up. When you go out fishing in the springtime, we're pretty much talking about, 0 to 10 feet of water. But when you go fishing in the fall, the whole water column opens up. So anyway, this is my boat. This is my little boat. This is my lake boat, actually. I usually keep this on my dock down at the lake here, but they're going to do a winter drawdown, and I'm keeping it up here, and I'm also going to Chickamauga. Went to Chickamauga today. I might be going back to Chickamauga tomorrow, so it's easier to trailer it than lock through. Don't know how many of you've locked through on these lakes, but it's fine in a tournament, but you don't want to do it in practice. You don't want to do it when you're just goofing around. We got everything here. We got, this you saw TJ, but we got minnow buckets because crappie are biting. Caught some big crappie today. Most of the time I'm using Bobby Garland baits when I go crappie fishing. But you can use minnows, you can use all the standard stuff to go crappie fishing, and it's the same explanation. You're fishing the extremes. Those crappie get up real shallow under these docks where you can skip them, or they'll actually get out in that real deep water with those bass and those deep shad, and you can find a deep brush pile 25 to 35 feet, and nobody's fishing it, and catch all sorts of crappie. So that's one thing I like about fall fishing. You can really extend where you want to have it. If you want to fish 6 inches to a foot of water, you're going to catch them. If you're fishing 35, 40 feet, you can catch them. And that's what I like. I don't like when everyone's fishing the exact same water, because then it gets a little crowded. All right. I haven't seen any questions come up, but this has been my first experience on Bass Live, Bass 365 Live. And maybe I'll try it again soon. I will be fishing the BPT Tour this year, which starts in January. My new boat actually shipped out, I think today or yesterday, should be here. I get my boat out of Bunch Marine over in Knoxville. I'll probably pick it up in a couple weeks, have it ready, rigged, then go get it wrapped and get ready for next year. But in the meantime, I'll probably be fishing every day. Out on Watts Bar, maybe out on Chickamauga. We got Dale Hollow close. We got Center Hill close. We got Parksville Reservoir. We got some great lakes around here. So it's been a great place to be, especially for a Western guy. I was a Western guy where you had to drive 3 hours to get to a lake. So I can go 3 minutes and I'm in the water here. So those are really my ideas on fall fishing. It's really the best time of year for me to go fishing. I know a lot of you hunt. I've never hunted. My son's got a junior hunt this week with some friends, so maybe he'll do my hunting for me. I'll just be out there fishing still. So thanks for watching. You guys are on there, and I appreciate the support. Check me out on Facebook, John Murray Professional Angler, Instagram, any of these. We do have a question. You think the water temp when the bass will evacuate the shallows? Well, and that's one thing. The bass, most of the bass in these lakes love cold weather. And so what I've seen, the different bass show up. So right now we're mostly fishing largemouth shallow. Probably in 2 months when it gets really cold, there's gonna be spots. There's gonna be big spots and big smallmouths in that shallow water. And I don't think, and it's really just the species prefer different lifestyles. The largemouths get a little harder to catch when it gets really cold. You can still catch them, but the spots get real aggressive and the smallmouths get real aggressive. So I think that's a real big key on these lakes. If you have all three species, be aware that I have a point out here on Watts Bar Lake that I know if I go across it anytime I'll catch a bass. Now, right now it'd probably be a largemouth, but in a month or two it might be a smallmouth, and then this winter it'll probably be a spot. So when it gets cold like that, and I'm not a cold weather fisherman. I see the question. I'm from Arizona, so I'm learning this real cold stuff too. But I've caught fish in water 38 degrees, especially around here, up at Dale Hollow. They still bite, especially smallmouth, especially spots. After that, you know, I've never done ice fishing. Never done ice fishing. I missed that last question. There was another question there. I missed it. Oh, braid or fluoro? Okay. I am a fluorocarbon guy. I'm usually always using all fluorocarbon. Now, when I'm throwing topwater, like I said, that's the one time I'll throw the braid a lot more. And I just like that, how it feels when I set that hook. I can get that hook set so much easier. Okay, so the braid is definitely my choice for that. Fluorocarbon for everything else, jigs, worms, crankbaits, stuff like that. No, but as far as the other stuff, I think it's really fluorocarbon. Okay, the pointers. Okay, there's the question on pointer minnows. Okay, I've used the big pointer minnows. And for a jerkbait, there's a lot of good ones. The mega bass, a lot of them. This is the one that I won a tournament on at Table Rock a few years ago. The Lucky Craft 128. I mean, I have a whole bunch of them because they work. But the reason I used it is because I was matching a hatch. There was big shad. There were big, there was baby white bass there. So the bait was a lot bigger than most places. So the little jerkbait just wasn't triggering those fish. So yeah, anytime you see a bait size make a big difference, it's almost always because of what the bait fish is doing. Okay, so always remember that when you're out there. Match that bait fish size, and that's going to be the biggest thing. And I've seen it make a huge difference. You know, a guy using a 5-inch swim bait, not catch anything, a guy downsized to a 3-inch swim bait, killing them, or vice versa. Always be cognizant of what kind of bait fish that they're around and the size you see. Okay? Well, we've had a couple guys watching. I have not used the Pointer 158 yet. Is that the biggest one? That's the giant one, I think. Okay, I got a few of those. I have not thrown them yet. But that is going to be a good bait. And again, that's a gizzard shad deal. When they're on gizzard shad, that'll be the perfect bait for that. So the key to jerk baits, it's real simple. Cadence. Cadence is everything. Vary your cadence till you find it. Sometimes it's a really fast retrieve. Sometimes it's that slow, let it sit out there for a minute retrieve. That's always the key to jerk baits. So match your size bait. I use basically 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon. I use gamma fluorocarbon for that. And you can downsize to 10. I know guys have used 8 on jerk baits, but I don't. I usually use at least 10, probably 12 or 14 or 16 pound test fluorocarbon for jerk baits. So we've gone around. Appreciate it. If you have any more questions, get me on Facebook, John Murray, professional angler, and I'll answer as many as I can. But after that, it's my son's bedtime, it's my bedtime, because I get up early and I'm going fishing tomorrow. So